Hello and welcome to the Brave Hearts, Bold Minds podcast, Growing Fine Young Men. I'm Lee Hatcher. Thanks for joining me as we explore a whole host of ideas and opportunities and seek to help the boys of today grow into the fine young men of tomorrow. Each week, I'll be interviewing an educator from the Scots College in Sydney to find out what makes boys tick and how to equip parents of school-age boys with practical insights so their sons can be built up and their characters strengthened for wisdom and compassion. So, let's ring the bell and meet our guest for this week's podcast. With me today is Nikki McCathie. Nikki is the Year 7 Student Academic and Welfare Coordinator at the Scots College, and her title is Boys Need to Feel Safe. Nikki, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Great to meet you. What sort of safety are we talking about here, Nikki? Because there are lots of rules and regulations about our physical safety, but that's not what you mean.
No, I don't mean that. I mean safety in the emotional sense. Boys feeling safe to express themselves, to be themselves, be risk takers in the learning environment, to explore their surroundings and feel safe about that with the facilitation of the teacher and their peers.
This is something I know you work really quite hard at, but also creatively at doing in the classroom, starting with creating a no put-down zone with early school years. What's that involved? Take us through that.
Well, I tend to do that early in the year when I'm getting to know the boys. It's a really important step so there's no ridicule within the classroom. So boys feel they can put their hand up at any time for clarification, for further discussion, to share their ideas without other boys sort of making faces, making noises, and that builds a really safe environment amongst the peers.
I'm sure for anyone in life.
Yes, it is. And it's a safe environment for the teacher as well, because I think if you show your vulnerability and show that you make mistakes and do the, oh, whoops, boys, I got that one wrong, that creates that environment for them to say, oh, it's okay to make a mistake.
No wrong questions?
No wrong questions, no wrong answers. Just building on thinking is the most important philosophy that I go by in the classroom.
Yeah. And in the process of that, you're often surprised at how sensitive and emotional boys are. How can you tell that?
Well, when you give them a scenario and say, how would you feel if you really felt strongly about something in particular, and then you had other boys saying that you were wrong or that your answer was incorrect, how would that make you feel? If you can build that kind of empathy in the younger years, moving through into the older years, it's a very powerful tool to use in the classroom. And boys have an incredible amount of empathy. A lot of us, I think, they don't express that, but if they're in a safe environment and feel comfortable with their peers and their teacher, they will express that emotion in various scenarios.
So why do they feel like they can't, do you reckon?
Being cool, being one of the crowd, wanting to be included by their peer group. Sometimes there's a level of perfection that they want to be included. But they come around to the understanding that showing your sensitivities and vulnerabilities can make you very included within an environment, because someone else will say, oh, I feel that way too. Or sometimes I feel that emotion. And that's quite a powerful thing.
So can you lead any and every boy to this, do you think?
I think some are more challenging. I think boys physically feel they need to be strong, and sometimes that translates into the emotional sense. And I believe that boys, if they show that vulnerability, might say, well, maybe I'm not going to be good on the rugby field because I'm an emotional person. But trying to marry the two together, I think, creates a really well-rounded student.
How do you do that? How do you marry those two arenas together?
By showing a lot of it from yourself. If you give a lot of yourself to the boys, show them your vulnerabilities, make yourself human within the classroom, that I think brings them out of their shell a little bit and makes them feel safe. I think when they can see me as not just a teacher, that they also see me as a person who feels sad sometimes, feels happy sometimes, who sees me as a mum. I think that's a really powerful tool that I can use in the classroom, being a mother of 3 and a mother of boys. They see, I can tell them funny stories and how I've reacted as a mother or how I've reacted as a person in situations. My regrets, what I may have regretted, sometimes that can bring out, oh, yes, miss, I regretted doing that too. I said that too, and the next day I felt like I needed to apologise for that. Those sort of scenarios.
How tricky is that? Because you can't really be their mate.
No, you can't. You can't be their mate. It's about building a connection that is solid enough that within the classroom they respect the boundaries within that classroom and they know this is a safe zone, this is how far we can go within this zone. But then knowing that outside the classroom, when I'm asking them to pick up a paper or tuck their shirt in or fix their ties, that there's a different level of authority there as well.
Yeah. I was going to ask about respect, but in a way, they'll respect you more as you get to know them and they get to know you.
Absolutely.
Within that boundary.
Absolutely. And I think you find the boys that you actually teach, if you ask them to do their tie up, tuck their shirt in, pick up a piece of paper, they do it without even thinking because they know you. They've got to know you, have a connection with those boys. So sometimes it can be difficult building that with boys you don't actually teach in your classroom and seeing them as an authority figure can be quite hard for some boys if they haven't got to know you in a classroom setting.
So in your wealth of experience, if a boy feels safe, what's it going to look like, sound like? And for him, what are the benefits of that?
Well, what it looks like in a classroom is boys that are willing to take risks. And if they see you as a teacher taking a risk with something in the classroom, they will follow suit and take risks. In the classroom, it's a lot of discussion, it's a lot of questioning, it's a lot of talking around a topic, building on other people's ideas, reminding us what is important around that idea and developing really good questions around that idea. Then being able to offer timely and strategic feedback based upon what they've provided for you in the classroom.
I can imagine some parents of these boys sitting there listening to this in wonderment that you extract those kind of conversations with the boys when they come home and offer a few grunts.
Well, I think too, it comes from, I'm primary school trained originally, and I think primary school teachers by our very nature, because we have a whole class all the time, we end up teaching the whole child. We teach a lot of different subject areas. We teach the whole child. Whereas I think sometimes in the senior school, I'm teaching maths in the senior school at the moment, you become very content driven, not so much teaching the whole child. So I think my philosophy is very much get to know the whole child, how they learn, how they think, how they respond in the classroom, and then you build that relationship with the boys and you understand them as a whole learner and you can create that feeling of lifelong learning within the classroom.
Peers can be such powerful people, for good or ill. What's it like when you see that working well with boys? They're feeling safe among their peers.
When it's working well, you get a lot of peer support and tutoring within the classroom.
Yeah.
So you have that ability to be able to say, who got that? Who really understood that? I did, miss. Great. Can you work with this group of boys and share your understanding with those group of boys whilst this group over here is going to be working on this, and then they can come with some common understanding over here. And that means that I'm not the expert. No. As I say to the boys, I can go to Google as well. I don't need to know everything. They become experts at certain areas and that gives them a sense of empowerment, but also gives them that idea of sharing their knowledge and how powerful that can be with sharing what they know with others.
One technique you use is the Monday weekend sports wrap-up. Take us through what happens there. This is ingenious.
It's such a fun time in the classroom. I think it's a good way of them getting to know me outside of school as well. So I might start off by saying, how did everyone go on Saturday? Have a good feel for the class, know how many football players, how many rugby players I've got in the classroom. Talk about what sports. Doesn't matter whether it's an A team or a D team. Say, how did you go? Give me something. Who scored a try? Who kicked a goal? Who was man of the match? Boys are wonderful at telling you how good someone else is. So when you draw that out in, miss, you should have seen such and such's try, it was amazing, builds a great conversation around why was it such a great try.
Even when the great one is not them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's really becomes a positive strategy to talk about strengths and weaknesses within the classroom. Yep. I think too, I share, I'm a mad Roosters supporter, so I'll always talk about Roosters, and then you've got your Bulldog supporter in it. It makes the teacher real that we have teams we support. I'm a rugby mum, so I've gone and watched my sons play rugby. I try where I can watch a few of my students play sport on the weekend because then I can comment on that sport on the weekend, and that I bring all of that into conversations. I ensure it's not just school sport. A lot of these boys play club and outside sport.
Sure.
So I get to know that as much as I can, and I'll say, hey, how did tennis go on Sunday? How'd you play? Did you beat? I know you were really, it was going to be a tough match. So just getting to know the boys on a different level, not just about your subject, not just in the classroom environment, builds that relationship, which then creates that safe zone that you need for learning.
Boys love to have a go. And I suppose that's what you're enabling them to do.
Have a go. Yeah. Fail. Yeah. Pick yourself up, have another go. I think the fear of failure is so restrictive, especially as boys get older.
Especially among their peers.
Absolutely. And I think little ones have this sense of wonderment and curiosity. And I don't know what happens by the time they get into year 6, year 7, year 8. They start to become self-conscious and they don't want to take the risk. They don't want to fail. They want to get it right the first time. So it's getting the boys to understand that it's through their failures that they will learn ultimately. So sharing stories about yourself, things that you've tried that didn't work, is very powerful.
You're the mother of how many sons? What ages?
I've got 2 boys. One is currently in year 12, nearly 18, and one is 14. He's in year 8.
Okay. What's your wisdom to parents? Not just wisdom for Scots parents, but wisdom for all parents of boys. What's your wisdom about how they can better help their boys feel safe, Nikki?
I think the most important thing is to be a great listener. I think as parents we do a lot of talking. We talk at our children a lot. We put our own hopes and dreams and ideals into our children, and we don't do enough listening about what they really want and what's really important to them, and allowing them the freedom to pursue their own dreams and what's important to them. And I think with that communication and that open communication, they will have a safe zone in their house. And it's also being the safety net for them. So if things haven't gone the way they think that they have, being there to say, it's okay. And also to say, I understand why you're upset about that.
So it's okay for a parent to appear, because they are sometimes vulnerable.
Absolutely.
To their boys.
Absolutely. I think at times in my life I may have missed out on a promotion or a role that I've shared with my family that I was going for, that I really wanted, haven't got it, and I've been sad about that. And my boys have actually seen me and said, oh, Mum, you're really disappointed, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I'm really disappointed. But it's okay, because there'll be something else that'll come. But I think them seeing that I'm vulnerable in situations, or I get nervous when I'm needing to speak in front of a whole group of parents as the Year 7 academic and welfare coordinator, I say, gosh, I'm nervous this morning, boys. I've got to speak to 200 parents. And I think that's great for my boys to know that even though I've been a teacher for 23 years and spoken in front of all sorts of people, I still get really nervous, and I think that's important.
And you can come home that night and they can see that you've nailed it.
Yes, and we share what happened. Something funny might have happened. I went totally off script, boys. I don't know what happened.
I went rogue.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that's really important.
Humour's a very important part of this, isn't it?
Very important. Yeah. I think when boys see their teachers smiling and laughing, it shows how human teachers are. And I know I've had a good day if my boys in my classes walk out with a smile on their face and say, thanks, miss, see you tomorrow, and they're smiling, I've done my job. That tells me they've felt safe, they've achieved something, they've accomplished something within that classroom, because, a smile tells 1,000 words, really.
Yeah. Can you come back in another life and teach me as a kid? Because I think if only I had a teacher like you.
It is,
what a gift.
Well, teaching is a vocation, as they say, but I do love it. I love particularly teaching boys.
It's got to be a passion too, though,
Absolutely.
for it to really work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nikki McCathie, thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Thanks so much for joining us and all your great work. If you'd like more information about growing your boy into a fine young man, you can subscribe to receive really useful articles and news from the Scots College. It's free, offered to every parent who wants the very best for their boy in their journey to manhood. In your internet search engine, enter the Scots College e-newsletter to subscribe. I'm Lee Hatcher. Hope you'll join me again next week for the Brave Hearts, Bold Minds podcast, Growing Fine Young Men. One more job, Nikki, before you go. Ring us out. Press that bell.